My sister embezzled my savings for her wedding, but I knew a dark secret about her fiancé. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My sister whispered, "Please don't tell. He'll fix everything if you wait." I'm Alex, 29, the sibling who hoards receipts and labeled envelopes and saves aggressively because chaos has a way of finding our family. I'm an EMT. My paycheck is steady but small, my hours elastic, my hands familiar with other people's worst days. The savings in question, $62 for 80. 17, are my down payment, my escape hatch, the thing that keeps my heartbeat low when sirens eat the night. I checked the account before my shift, sipping burnt coffee, and went numb. Transfer, 6:14 a.m. Cascade events, venue retainer. I froze, then called the bank, then called Mira. She let me finish panicking before she said, voice syrupy, "Breathe. It's a loan. You'll get it back after the honeymoon." When I said, "You took it without consent," she whispered the opener like a spell and added, "It's just optics until the wire clears." I stared at the number again and felt the room tilt. Because I knew something about Daniel Vale, Myra's fiancé with the Marintan grin that made my mouth taste like pennies. I knew what he changed his name from. I knew why he never used Zelle. I knew he had a habit of paying vendors with other people's grace. I also knew that if I spoke, I might detonate her wedding, our mother's heart, and the last bridge I had to home. But if I stayed quiet, the hole under all of us would widen. My sister begged me to wait. The siren inside me refused. I said, "Then tell me why Daniel's last fiancé filed a fraud report." Mira and I grew up in a house where aesthetics outran budgets and apologies, where our mother ironed napkins but not grudges. Mira learned to perform happiness, and I learned to pack a go bag. Money was a costume there. If it fit, you wore it even if it pinched. Mira has always been the glossy one. Theater kid turned wellness marketer, sponsored candles, the right friends at the right rooftops. I was the shadow with a patient lift, a small apartment over a laundromat that smells like steam and quarters. We were close in the way people are when they've translated the same parent, until money entered the room and turned words to courtroom exhibits. Last month, when I told Mira I'd hit my savings goal, she smirked, "Cute. You finally believe you deserve a front door." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. She texted me a budget spreadsheet with a winky face, "Teach me your ways," and I thought it was a peace flag. Now I replay that emoji like a doorbell camera. Mom, when I told her about the transfer, said, "Don't ruin this for Mira. Weddings are stressful. He has a plan." Daniel, at every dinner, listens more than he speaks, the kind of quiet that makes people call you trustworthy. He once said to me, "Cash is king," like it was wisdom and not warning. Aunt Jules, our mother's older sister, keeps photos from before Dad left and before the stage lights. She says, "You can love a person and still lock your wallet." I wanted to believe Mira had panicked and would fix it. I wanted to believe Daniel was just smug, not strategic. Then Mira texted, "Don't loop Aunt Jules in. She dramatizes things." The bank rep, Alicia, was gentle. She repeated what the screen showed. 2 logins from devices I didn't recognize, both authenticated by a recovery email ending in Vale Consulting. I had never linked a recovery email to that account. The transfer note, Cascade Events, venue retainer, matched the venue Mira bragged about. A glass and cedar cliff space where drones spell names against the sky. I wanted to believe I'd misclicked, that a safeguard I'd set up had gone rogue. I scrolled through months of deposits. Overtime, hazard pay, the tiny raises that feel like jokes until they compound. Every date was a mile I'd run. The number in red was a cliff I'd fallen from. I called Cascade Events. The receptionist asked for the contact. I said, "Alex Rivera," and she paused. "We have that name on the contract as financial guarantor." My ear burned. Who signed? Electronic signature, timestamped 6:11 a.m. IP registered to Vale Consulting. I hung up and stared at the wall until the clock ticked me back. At the station, I wrapped a stranger's wrist, thinking how easily people bruise. After shift, I drove to Myra's, the townhouse with the eucalyptus wreath. She opened the door in silk and said, "You look dramatic." Daniel crossed the hall carrying a garment bag, smiling like a flight attendant. I said, "You used my name and money as collateral." Mira waved. "It's semantics. The gift will cover it. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. He said, Cascade Ms. entered the guarantor. It's fixable. I said, then fix it tonight. He shrugged. Business hours, Alex. The garment bag zipper snagged, and something sharper than silk glinted inside. Just stay for dinner, Mom urged over speakerphone, voice bright and brittle. We can talk like family. At the table, placed cards and crystal, Daniel poured wine and talked in soft bulbs. Alex, he said, you told Mira you'd always help if she needed it. He let the sentence hang like an accusation dressed as praise. Mira added, you promised, when we were kids, to be my safe place. I remembered that night. Dad gone. Rain like static, me making hot chocolate on a stool. A promise isn't consent to theft, I said. Daniel spread his hands. We made a mistake in the contract, easily amended tomorrow. Then the doorbell rang. A courier handed Daniel an envelope. He paled for a blink before smoothing. Vendor update, he said too quickly. In the kitchen, I slid the envelope from the trash. The seal hadn't fully stuck. Inside, notice of insufficient funds, bridge transfer declined. The account listed, Vail Consulting operating. Mira saw me reading and hissed. You're snooping. I said, I'm safeguarding. Mom snapped, don't humiliate your sister on her week. Daniel's smile returned, brittle as candy. I'll handle it in the morning. I put the notice on the table between the candles. This says your business can't float the transfers you promised vendors. He shrugged. Short-term cash flow. We're awaiting receivables. Mira, Alex, please. I asked Daniel, why is my email attached to your contracts? He said, because you're family now. Aunt Jules texted, 3 words, document. Everything. Quietly. Daniel lifted his glass and said, let's not ruin the night over a clerical error. By morning, the group chat renamed itself Protect the Weekend. My texts about the transfer were met with champagne emojis and we'll settle after vows. Friends I hadn't met yet posted pastel quotes about loyalty. One tagged me. Real love doesn't count receipts. I muted the thread and started a folder on my desktop, Moraden wedding funds. Aunt Jules called, you okay? I said no. She said, put your savings goal in writing and email Mira. State the amount, date, and lack of consent. That's not drama. That's record. I typed and sent. Mira replied, stop being a cop. I stared at the word cop and thought about the nights I'd held strangers' hands while the morphine took the edge off. That afternoon, my supervisor asked if I could swap to nights. I needed the overtime and the hours away from my phone. In the ambulance, I thought about how resentment borrows your lungs. When I got off shift, a DM waited. He's done this before. No name, just a screenshot of a public records search. Daniel Vail, aka Daniel Vela, Civil Judgment 2019, breach of fiduciary duty. I Googled deeper. A dissolved LLC in Nevada. A complaint buried in an HOA forum about a consultant who disappeared after collecting deposits. My chest went cold. I sent Mira the judgment printout. She wrote back, people rebrand. I wrote, fraud isn't a mood board. She didn't reply. Mom called soft. Honey, if you love her, don't do this now. Love, in our house, had always meant silence and centerpieces. I told Mom I loved Mira enough to be loud at the worst time. I went to the bank in uniform, because authority sometimes opens doors that grief slams. Alicia printed audit trails, 2 logins from IP addresses linked to a co-working space Daniel Instagrammed last week. A recovery email added at 6:01 a.m. 2-factor authorization disabled for maintenance at 6:05. I never disabled it. We can freeze the account pending investigation, she offered. Do it, I said, and flag any transactions referencing Cascade events, Vail Consulting or Mira Rivera. Outside, I called Cascade, asked procurement to confirm who signed the vendor release schedule. Primary contact, Daniel Vail, guarantor, Alex Rivera, the staffer read. Note, alternate contact, Mira Rivera, Gmail. I thanked him and walked to my car feeling like the pavement was learning my weight. At home, I opened Myra's spreadsheet from last month, the one with the winky face, and checked the hidden tabs. There it was, a column called Bridge, listing names with amounts, mine circled in green. Under Notes, repay postwire. If not, ask Alex to float. I wanted to vomit. I printed it. Then the email. Invoice 3307. Final floral payment. Sender. Dan. Vale at Vale Consulting. IO. CC. My work email. Why my work? The attachment metadata said, author, Daniel Vela. He'd missed changing the last name. I saved everything to the Meraden folder and named each file with dates and who confirmed what. Aunt Jules texted, you're doing the adult thing. Adult felt like another word for lonely. Then a new message arrived. You don't know who you're messing with, EMT. I took screenshots, sent them to Aunt Jules, and used a calm voice I reserve for bleeding people. We're not panicking, I told myself out loud. I visited the florist listed on the invoice. The owner, Viv, wore shears like jewelry. We were told not to speak to you, she said, then looked at my uniform, softened. I showed her the insufficient funds notice and asked for dates and amounts. She glanced around and whispered, initial deposit from a card under Vale Consulting, declined twice. Then a wire from an account labeled AR down payment, same day as this invoice. She pointed to my name on her screen. I swallowed. At a cafe, I met an ex-planner, Kay, who DM'd me. She'd fired Daniel as a client last year. He loves other people's wallets, she said. She forwarded a voice memo. Daniel coaching a bride to call her brother's savings a temporary relocation. I cataloged it. Back home, I opened a new spreadsheet, timeline, columns for timestamps, IPs, amounts, confirmations, witnesses. The pattern held. Daniel promised a wire, stalled with charm, then dipped into whichever account he could touch, usually a relative's. When blocked, he pivoted vendors. I remembered Mira once saying, he's just creative with cash flow. I called Mira. You're building a false story, she said. Then look at the files with me. I replied. Silence. After the rehearsal, she said finally, I can't be stressed right now. I thought of triage. Who's bleeding? Who's breathing? Who's lying? Then Daniel texted, meet me alone tonight, or your sister loses everything. We met at a tasting room with moody lighting that made every bottle look like an apology. Daniel leaned in, whispering like a conspirator. You think you've solved me, he said, but you don't know why. I asked, why did you change from Vela to Vale? He smiled, branding. He slid a folder toward me, screenshots of his ex, who had indeed filed a judgment, but also sent late-night messages begging him back. People weaponize paper, he said. Your sister needed help quickly. I built a bridge. He tapped the table. Short-term loans, Shell LLCs, arbitrage between vendor cycles. It's math, not malice. He listed LLC names like a rosary. The twist wasn't that he hid money. It was that he framed theft as temporary engineering. If the new wire hits, he said, all vendors paid, your account replenished, and you apologize. I asked for details on the inbound funds. He gave an entity I didn't recognize and a bank I did. I excused myself, stepped outside, called that bank's fraud department, and asked if transfers from that entity were under review. The rep said, carefully, I can't discuss specifics, but I'd proceed with caution. Daniel watched me through the glass, smiling like he'd already won. In the car, I Googled the entity. It traced to a debt consolidation service flagged by state regulators last quarter. The bridge wasn't a bridge, it was a drawbridge on fire. If that wire didn't land, my guarantee stood. If it did, it might be clawed back as proceeds of fraud. I realized the safest outcome still burned me and everyone I loved. I sat in the dark with my laptop's glow like a lighthouse and built my case. I compiled PDFs, bank logs from Alicia, vendor emails with headers intact, audio from Kay, the florist's invoice with the author metadata, the insufficient funds notice, Daniel's text demanding a meeting, Myra's spreadsheet with bridge circled. I wrote a one-page summary, dates, amounts, who confirmed, and potential criminal statutes explained in plain English. I called attorney Sean, a friend of Aunt Jules, who answered with polite caution. I said, I'm not suing today. I'm preventing further harm. He said, document consent, lack thereof, and urgency. Send a pre-demand letter demanding return of funds in 48 hours, and propose a supervised escrow for vendor payouts. He added, if you expose publicly, do it with truth and witnesses. The plan clicked into place. A meeting at the bank with Alicia and Chin present, Mira invited, Daniel compelled by the promise of clearing misunderstandings. I scheduled it for Friday at 10. I printed everything twice and put one set in a fireproof envelope. I also filed a police report online. Not glamorous, not loud, but time-stamped. Finally, I wrote Mira a love letter dressed as boundaries. I will help you, but only if funds are restored through escrow and you freeze vendor payments now. She read it and replied, "You're ruining the romance." I replied, "Romance without consent is a con wearing flowers and borrowed light." At the final menu tasting, Daniel sat beside me, his cuff brushing my sleeve like a threat pretending to be an accident. "You called a lawyer," he murmured. "Smart. Let me be smarter." He described a revised schedule. I withdraw my report. He sends a smaller wire today. Vendors receive comfort emails to stop talking to me. He leaned closer, voice syrup. "You're making yourself undateable with this energy." Mira laughed too loudly from across the table, and for a second I saw her, little girl wearing our mother's heels, wobbling but proud. The waiter set down a course like a sculpture. Daniel clinked his fork against my plate. "Eat. You save lives. Save this one." My heart pounded. He was good, too good, at making me apologize for protecting myself. He squeezed my shoulder, a touch meant for the room, not me. Aunt Jules met my eyes from the end of the table and gave the tiniest shake of her head. After dinner, in the parking lot, Daniel grabbed my elbow. "If you show up tomorrow," he said low, "I'll make sure there's a narrative about you." I just stared at his teeth. "Narratives need facts," I said. "You've manufactured enough." He smiled. "You think facts matter more than vibes? Watch." I pulled free and walked to my car feeling 90. My phone buzzed. "Meeting confirmation, Friday 10 a.m. Conference 2B. Then Mira texted me 3 words. "Please don't come." I arrived early with chun and a folder thick enough to bruise. Alicia had reserved a glass box that looked like honesty. We arranged screens, queued emails, printed statements. No theatrics, just sequence. "If truth is a ladder, we'll let them climb," Chin said. Mira arrived first, eyes swollen, makeup careful. She wouldn't sit. "You're humiliating me," she whispered. I said, "I'm protecting you." Daniel strolled in 8 minutes late, no tie, phone in hand. "Before we start," he said, "let me record so there's no misunderstanding." Chin nodded. "We're recording too." Alicia began. "We're here to discuss transactions involving account holder Alex Rivera and vendor payments for Cascade events." Daniel launched into a sermon about family misunderstandings and provisional loans. Chin asked, "Do you acknowledge that Alex did not consent to act as guarantor?" Daniel smiled. "Consent is subjective in families." Chin raised an eyebrow. "Not in law." I slid forward the florist invoice with the author, Daniel Vela, metadata, the insufficient funds notice, the audit trail showing my 2-factor disabled. Daniel's face flickered. "Clerical," he said. Alicia shared the IP logs. He licked his lips. "Co-working space Wi-Fi is public," he countered. Chin clicked play on Kay's voice memo. Daniel's coaching about temporary relocations. The room exhaled. Then Alicia shared the hold notice. The inbound bridge wire was frozen under suspicion. The screens bloomed with dates and transfers like a constellation you can only see when someone names it. Chun narrated gently. "Funds siphoned from Alex's account at 6:14 a.m. Venue retainer memo. Emails authored by Daniel Vela despite rebrand. Repeated insufficient funds notices. Vendors paid with mixed sources, including non-consensual collateral. Pending inbound wire flagged related to a state-investigated consolidator." Daniel's jaw hardened. He turned to Mira. "He hates me because I'm building what he can't," he said, voice suddenly raw. "He's jealous of our life." Mira whispered, "Is any of this untrue?" He paused a fraction too long. "It's not criminal," he said. Chin folded his hands. "Intent follows pattern. Today, we propose escrow supervised by this branch, immediate return of funds to Alex, and a freeze on vendor payouts until provenance is verified." Daniel scoffed. "You can't stop a wedding." I said, "I can stop my name funding it." Alicia added, "And the bank can stop suspected fraud." Myra's hand shook. Daniel hissed, "If you do this, there'll be no pretty photographs, Mira." She looked at me like a drowning person looking for shore. I slid over a photo of us as kids in raincoats, hot chocolate steam like clouds. "We can have ugly truth and be safe," I said. Daniel laughed. "Me now. You want truth." He slapped down a paper. A promissory note, forged with my signature. My name looked like mine, until I noticed the wrong middle initial. Forgery is a funny kind of relief. Finally, something the room can't vibe away. Chun circled the wrong initial, the mismatched loop on the R, the timestamp after my documented shift started. Alicia called security. Daniel stopped smiling. "We can fix this," he said to Mira. "Tell them you authorized." She stared at the forged note like it could turn back into a napkin. "I didn't," she whispered. Security escorted Daniel out as he shouted, "We're not done." The bank froze the relevant transfers and opened an internal fraud case. I filed a supplemental police report in the lobby while Mira cried in a chair that made her look smaller than her hair. Vendors called within hours. Word travels faster than flowers. Some to scream, some to thank me, some to ask if they should hold. I told them all the same. Wait for escrow or walk away. Group chats detonated. I became the saboteur, the bitter sibling, the EMT with a hero complex. Work got weird. Someone on a scene recognized me from a bridesmaid rant and asked for a selfie. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Aunt Jules made me soup and printed affirmations like a corny saint. Chun drafted a civil demand letter. Police scheduled an interview. A detective said, "We'll need your timeline spreadsheet." I emailed it with shaking hands. That night, Mira knocked on my door with her makeup in a grocery bag. Mira sat on my thrifted couch, knees to chest, looking like a kid lost in a mall. "I thought love meant not asking questions," she said. "He made questions feel like betrayal." I handed her tea and the repayment plan I drafted. Escrow, structured monthly payments, automatic withdrawals, no contact with vendors without bank oversight, therapy as a condition. "This isn't punishment," I said. "It's scaffolding." She nodded, took a pen, and signed the plan with a hand that trembled but didn't flinch. We called vendors together. Some released us with fees. Others negotiated. A few refused to speak without Daniel. Chun filed a petition for a temporary restraining order barring Daniel from contacting me. The judge granted it. Mom called, crying. I wanted the photos, and I said, "I want Mira alive." It wasn't a metaphor. We found out the consolidator was under active investigation. Clawbacks were likely. My savings might reappear as a miracle or vanish as a lesson. I set up a separate high-yield account at a different bank with no shared recovery lines and enabled hardware keys like armor. Mira started therapy with a woman who didn't own a ring light. On my fridge, we taped a picture of us as kids in those raincoats. I went back to nights. Ambulances don't care about weddings. Then Daniel violated the order by leaving a note under my wiper. The note said, "You'll thank me when this is over," which is how predators bless their own mess. I photographed it, reported it, and watched the detective fold the paper like a verdict. Weeks later, Daniel was charged with forgery and attempted identity theft. Vendors filed civil claims. The bridge, wire disappeared like a magic trick that never worked. Not every ending is cinematic. We canceled the venue. Mira moved in with Aunt Jules for a while. Mom learned to say, "I'm sorry," without decorating it. Some friends unfriended us. Others brought soup and silence. A few said, "I believed him too," which helped. My savings didn't fully return, but enough did. The rest will be paid monthly by a sister who now texts me pictures of receipts like love notes. I still turn on the siren for strangers, and I still label envelopes. Here's what I learned. Consent isn't a tone. It's a document. Love doesn't erase signatures. Boundaries are not betrayals. And when secrets ask you to be quiet, ask for timestamps. If you notice money moving without your permission, freeze first, feel later, print logs, call vendors, create a timeline, invite witnesses, use escrow. Keep your hardware keys on a separate ring from your house keys. And if someone says, "Don't ruin the vibe," remember that safety is a vibe too.